As far as a decade-by-decade breakdown of Randhurst, the 60s were probably its most successful decade. Just given the fact that it was a very new, exciting place. It was something of a novelty. People were literally traveling from different states to see this thing. Just in its first year alone, it had over 1 million visitors. So in addition to it being a very convenient place to shop, it was also something to see. And you kind of saw that trailing off in the 1970s, and that's due in large part to a lot of other surrounding communities kind of catching the hint that a large shopping center or a mall would be a very good thing economically for their communities. And the biggest one that had the biggest ripple effect on the area, and specifically with Randhurst, was Woodfield Mall, which was constructed in the early 70s. Obviously, still a very vibrant place today. After kind of the newness of Randhurst wore off, Woodfield was built, and suddenly everyone was flocking to Woodfield, and that was the big thing to see and the big place to go. And the fact that it was a 15-20 minute drive away from Randhurst definitely hurt Randhurst, so much so that by the end of the 70s, the Randhurst company disbanded, and in 1981 it was sold to the Rouse Corporation. And when the Rouse Corporation took over in the 1980s, they obviously knew the place needed a facelift. They were going to have to do something to keep this mall competitive. So they expanded. A multi-million-dollar renovation ensued. They added 2 new anchor stores. They added a food court. They added escalators, and basically just did a lot of modernizing to the building. And it was successful. It was a very kind of hopping place to be in the 80s. Kind of breathed new life into the building. And kind of as financial proof of that, the village in the 80s reported their income tax revenues at a 13-year high, which was very likely credited to this renovation. The 90s should have been a good decade for Randhurst. They had their highest retail capacity ever. They were coming off some good years in the 80s. But Woodfield struck again, and Woodfield decided it was also going to do a modern addition. They added more chain stores, an entire new wing to the mall. So again, Randhurst was outshone by Woodfield, and this continued into the new millennium. There were a couple replacement anchor stores and additions, as well as structures that surrounded the mall, a Buffalo Wild Wings, a Costco, a Home Depot, that were not attached to the mall but were on the property of the mall. So you did see a resurgence in 2004, 2005. They also used celebrities to promote the shopping center, and celebrities also knew it was a good place for them to go to get exposure for whatever they were trying to pitch. A couple examples is Arnold Schwarzenegger, Lou Ferrigno, Robert F. Kennedy actually made a campaign stop here in the 60s, and Oprah Winfrey was present at the Randhurst grand opening in the 1980s. The irony of this plan has not escaped many people. The fact that the center of Randhurst is literally getting ripped out and a road getting put through it, in essence making it a small downtown, is certainly interesting, if not outright inspiring glee in some people. But I think it is interesting to note that while malls are criticized as this force that destroyed small businesses and destroyed downtowns, that when Randhurst was built outside of the major chain stores, the small stores were all run by local people, by small businesses. It was seen as just a good place to have your stores. So, I mean, this wasn't supposed to be this overbearing force that, these huge stores came from far away to destroy the downtown. That's not really how it worked, at least initially. And people at the time saw it as a positive thing. I mean, we kind of criticize it now, but it was a very new and exciting thing. If you could try to imagine, not seeing anything like Randhurst ever, and something like that is built, of course you'll embrace the concept, and of course you'll hop in your new car that you're just being able to afford for the first time, if not 2 cars for your family. Driving and going to these big places was seen as a sign of progress. It was seen as a very exciting thing, a very cool thing to do. And now we're kind of seeing a trend more towards the pedestrian shopping, and I would argue that it's seen as a cool thing by us to do the downtown model and the pedestrian shopping because we didn't grow up with that. It's new and exciting to us because we did not have that. So I think it's just kind of a good representation of how history can move in cyclical motions, and how you see trends reemerge, and history just keeps moving forward along those lines of the old being new, and the new being old, if you will.
Randhurst's final decade was very disappointing and led to its demise. However, Randhurst is not gone. It is actually being reborn. At this time, Randhurst is being turned into a new lifestyle center, which will make it more like a classic downtown, ironically. The design will leave the anchors intact and end up incorporating those anchors into the new design. In essence, Randhurst will be able to keep a small part of itself in this new design, which is great because of the mall's great history. The new Randhurst Village will be an open-air mall, with a street being built through the middle of it. It will also include a hotel and apartments, as well as offices. The final demolition of the mall will be the main area where the dome is, and it will be demolished in June, after a ceremony that will unlock a time capsule that was placed at the very top of the dome when it was constructed. After that, the rest of the mall, except for the anchors, will be demolished, and Randhurst Village is slated to open in 2010. There are many malls out there that are on their deathbed or already closed that still stand, and if this project is successful, this may be a new trend for turning failed malls into the latest and greatest thing. Only time will tell.